Have you ever noticed how often Americans talk about goals at work? Deadlines, targets, KPIs, performance reviews. Everything seems to revolve around clear objectives. In many cultures, people focus more on loyalty, seniority, or simply doing your best. But in the United States, one question matters more than almost anything else. What is the goal? Why do Americans feel uncomfortable working without clear goals? Why do they prefer specific targets over vague expectations? And how did this way of thinking become so deeply rooted in American work culture? Today, we're going to explain why Americans prefer clear goals at work, and what this reveals about how they think, work, and define success. In American workplaces, ambiguity is often seen as a problem. If a task is unclear, employees will ask questions. If expectations are vague, people feel uneasy. If goals are missing, motivation drops quickly. This isn't because Americans lack flexibility. It's because clarity equals fairness. Clear goals answer three important questions. What exactly am I responsible for? How will my performance be measured? What happens if I succeed or fail? In American culture, not knowing these answers feels risky. Without clear goals, people worry. Am I doing enough? Will I be blamed later? How do I know if I'm succeeding? Goals remove uncertainty, and Americans tend to value certainty, especially in professional settings. One of the biggest reasons Americans prefer clear goals is simple. They care deeply about results. In the U.S., effort alone is rarely enough. Working hard matters, but only if it leads to outcomes. That's why American workplaces often say things like, "What did you achieve? What value did you create? What impact did your work have?" Clear goals make results measurable. Instead of vague praise like "you worked hard this year," people want specific feedback. Did sales increase? Did customer satisfaction improve? Did the project finish on time? This mindset comes from a long tradition of performance-based evaluation. Raises, promotions, bonuses, and even job security often depend on meeting clearly defined goals. Another key factor is personal responsibility. In American culture, individuals are expected to take ownership of their work. Clear goals make ownership possible. When goals are specific, responsibility becomes clear. If the goal is met, credit is earned. If the goal is missed, accountability follows. This may sound harsh, but many Americans see it as empowering. Clear goals allow people to say, "This is my task. This is my responsibility. This is my chance to prove myself." Without goals, responsibility feels blurred, and blurred responsibility often leads to frustration. Americans generally prefer knowing exactly where they stand, even if the expectations are high. This goal-focused thinking doesn't start at work. It starts in school. From a young age, American students are taught: set goals, track progress, measure outcomes. Grades, rubrics, standardized tests, and project objectives all reinforce the idea that success should be measurable. Students are often told, "Here's what an A looks like. Here are the criteria. Here's how you'll be evaluated." This trains people to associate clarity with fairness and motivation. By the time Americans enter the workforce, working without clear goals feels unnatural. Americans also place a high value on time efficiency. The phrase "time is money" isn't just a saying, it's a mindset. Clear goals help people prioritize tasks, avoid wasted effort, move quickly toward outcomes. When goals are vague, time feels wasted. Meetings become longer. Work feels endless. Progress becomes harder to track. Clear goals act like a compass. They tell people where to focus and what to ignore. Another reason Americans prefer clear goals is psychological. Goals create visible progress. When people know the target, they can see themselves moving closer to it. This creates motivation, checking items off a list, hitting milestones, reaching benchmarks. These small wins matter. They provide a sense of control and momentum. In contrast, vague expectations often feel exhausting. People work but don't feel accomplished. Clear goals turn effort into progress. In the U.S., people are encouraged to take initiative, but initiative needs direction. Clear goals give people freedom within boundaries. Instead of being told how to do something, Americans often prefer being told what the goal is, what success looks like, what constraints exist. Then they decide the method themselves. This balance between structure and autonomy is central to American work culture. Of course, this mindset has downsides. Too much focus on goals can lead to stress, burnout, short-term thinking. Some Americans struggle when goals become unrealistic or constant. Still, even critics usually don't reject goals entirely. They argue for better goals, not fewer goals. Clear goals turn work into something measurable, manageable, and meaningful. They align with America's deeper values. Individual responsibility, results over intentions, progress over tradition. Understanding this mindset helps explain not just how Americans work, but how they think. If you found this explanation helpful, consider watching our other videos on American mindset and work culture. And remember, sometimes, understanding why people work the way they do matters more than copying what they do. Thanks for watching Why is Explained.